皆さんこんにちは、Sherlock です。Kendo, the Japanese art of the sword. I have studied Kendo for a little over 3 years, and in this short time, using my experience in other martial arts training, I have come to some conclusions that, in my opinion, are the pros and cons of Kendo. First and foremost, Kendo is fantastic exercise. Due to the nature of Kendo, it can take a lot of energy to get through a full lesson, or even just a single match. Maybe that's just me. If, like myself, you are a heavier judoka, Kendo is a great art and great fat burner, good exercise and fitness, always a pro. As well as the physical development, Kendo also helps the student develop spiritually. Through rigorous training, the exercises taught help to build the student's ability to push through mental barriers. The study of Kendo can help build the student's mental strength and humbles the student. This is a very effective method of development. Turning Kendo from a martial art into a sport, as good as this is, as it allows Kendo to be exposed to a much wider range, it can have equally negative effects, such as the addition of competition rules can remove an element of realism. These elements that I have encountered so far are things such as the limitations to the space of the combat area, restrictions in the number of striking targets, and not counting a strike or cut that in reality would have actually been fatal, but for the sake of competition is ignored because the cut or strike did not meet the required standards. In a sense, this brings the quality of each individual student up, but at the same time loses an element of realistic combat. This unfortunately puts a point in con. As with any competitive system or sport, this can encourage and create egocentric individuals. Ego, in my opinion, is what can cause most problems for a student and dojo. This is because a sporting system only rewards wins as against a deeper knowledge and understanding of the system being practiced. This for me is a definite point for con. However, as I said earlier, there can be some benefits to the removal of some aspects of realism. In a sense, this brings the quality of each individual student up. See, I did say that. This means that the students can learn to refine and hone their technique. In competition, a point is not scored unless the student gets ippon with Kiken Tai Ichi. This means that the winning strike would have actually been an effective cut and not just blind luck while swinging a sword around. This focus and dedication to perfecting the use of a few strikes in Kendo gives the student the motivation and ability to deeply study, understand, and use their techniques in the best and most effective way possible. Studying in this manner can not only sharpen the student's skills, but also their mind, body, and spirit through rigorous and determined training. Definitely a point for pro. As Kendo has evolved from the battlefield and self-defense art of Kenjutsu into a more spiritually developing art or sport, certain aspects became deemed as no longer necessary or too dangerous for the modern purposes. This includes the restriction of striking targets and a reduction in the number of kamae used. As a result of the reduction in kamae, there is also a restriction in the movements or footwork available to the student. Firstly, the restriction of targets to strike. As we are all probably aware, getting hit with a live bladed sword is unpleasant, no matter where it hits. And so, in a battlefield or in a self-defense, fighting for your life type scenario, rules would have been thrown out and anything that worked would have been used. However, in modern Kendo, a point will only be awarded if there is a good strike to the men, kote, do, or a thrust to the throat or ski. This reduction in the striking targets means that the students have to be much more precise in their aim and give more purpose to each cut. This causes an increase in skill and technique, a definite pro. Unfortunately, this also removes an element of realism from Kendo. For example, a student can prevent their opponent from scoring a point simply by tilting their head. This may work for the purpose of a point-based sport, but would be an incredibly bad habit if used against a live blade. Now, I personally learn Kendo to help supplement Kenjutsu, so this sort of combat is, in my opinion, bad. So I am putting a point in con. Secondly, the number of kamae available during sparring or keiko has been drastically reduced. Now, much like reducing the number of striking targets increases the student's skill and understanding, reducing the number of available kamae can have a very similar effect. However, I feel it is more detrimental to the art and the student as a whole. As anyone who knows the Kendo kata also knows there are more kamae technically in Kendo than are used in keiko, such as haso no kamae, gedan no kamae, waki kamae, and even both hidari and migi jodan kamae. Whereas in keiko, only chudan and hidari jodan, or if using two swords for nito, are the only available kamae. I feel that if students were allowed to use all of these kamae, not only would this create more realism, but would also bring a lot more variation into Kendo. This would allow the students to personalise more their style and strategy in keiko. Each kamae has their own advantages and disadvantages. Quite rightly, chudan no kamae is the most all-around effective kamae, which is why it is most commonly used for Kendo. But allowing the students to move between the 6 or so kata-style kamae would add so much more to the art. By allowing the students to move between even just the 6 or so previously mentioned kata-style kamae, I believe this could add so much more variation to keiko and individual students' own styles and ability. So for me, having so few available kamae adds a point to con. This actually leads neatly onto my third point of this list, movement style. As a result of removing many real-world situations, such as surprise attacks, opponents from the side or rear, and even multiple opponents, and replacing that with a single, front-on opponent who only attacks head-on after bowing. The need for circular, twisting, or other styles of ashisabaki is replaced with mostly forward and backward movement. For the style of combat or competition that is Kendo, the kamae and footwork fit seamlessly together for fast and powerful movement. And for that purpose, perfect! But, as I have previously mentioned, I also study schools of Kenjutsu and Taijutsu. These specific schools were written with war and combat in mind, and waste no time in telling the student that a fight will not be neat and fair like in competition. It is here that, as much as I think Kendo is great for its own purpose, some of the flaws in Kendo's real-world applications start to show. For example, Kendo's main kamae, chudan no kamae, is very weak from the sides, and with both feet facing forward, can be difficult to move smoothly and strongly at angles. On rough and uneven terrain, these problems can become very prevalent, whereas a wider, more open kamae allows for easy, natural movement. The Kendo style, although very efficient for its own purpose, I believe is lacking the ability to be used fluidly in a self-defense or real combat situation. Now, this may be down to my own lack of understanding, ability and experience, but for now, I'm giving that a point to con. And just to balance out this point, the style of kamae and ashisabaki is perfect for its purpose. The opponent is always directly in front, and most of the time using the exact same style. Here is where Kendo absolutely excels, and the style allows for smaller or physically weaker to be able to overcome any opponent. A Kendo fight will be won by the student with better technique. Those who study Kendo can become uniquely fast and coordinated in their movements. This is what makes Kendo fascinating to me, and is the elements I want to bring into all of my martial arts training. That is definitely another point for pro. Kendo's kata form the basis of training the techniques, kamae, ashisabaki, and the spirit of Kendo. All of this can be found in every moment of the kata. The kata also do not necessarily reflect the competition-style combat of Keiko, but are still firmly planted within their roots of Kenjutsu. A student can actually spend years studying and learning from each of the individual kata. Training in the kata not only gives the students strength and knowledge that can be brought into their Keiko, but also teaches them more realistic and functional uses of the katana. The kata also makes use of movements and kamae that are sadly not allowed in Keiko. For me personally, these extra parts of learning are where the kata truly shine. No matter what grade the student is, there is always something new to learn about or even from the kata that can be applied to both Keiko and using a real katana. I think it is quite a shame that there is not an Iaido style kata competition within Kendo, but they can still be enjoyed and learned from. So, due to the more realistic and deep teaching and learning made possible through the kata, I am awarding the final point to pro. And so here is the final scores. Now, all of these points are my own personal opinion based on my own experiences in Kendo and based on my knowledge and beliefs of martial arts. Some people may find that they enjoyed Kendo for the reasons that I have assigned negative points to, and that is absolutely fine. Variation and differing opinions and uses are what allow martial arts to grow and evolve with time. With that said, do you agree with me? What do you like or dislike about Kendo? Let me know in the comments section below. Well, thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please click the like button, and if you've not done so already, subscribe as well. I am Sherlock. Minasan, miru arigatou gozaimasu. Ato de arimashou. However, as I said earlier, armour is not slimming. I feel that if students were allowed to use all of these kamae, I'd be able to write the other half of that sentence. Now, this all...